I'm here to talk about Translators Without Borders, which, as Andrew said, was co-founded by Lori Thicke. A little ironic that I've come up here from Syracuse, New York, to her hometown to give this, but she couldn't come. She wanted to come. She couldn't come for personal reasons. But I'm very happy to tell you about the organization that she created. Translators Without Borders, the name came from the first client, Doctors Without Borders. As I understand it, about 18 years ago, Doctors Without Borders, which is down the road from Lori's translation agency in Paris, requested a quote from the agency. And she talked with her partner, and they decided to offer to do the job for free, given that the client was Doctors Without Borders. And apparently Doctors Without Borders came back and said, you know, we're not asking for it for free. We have a budget for these sorts of things. And she said, yeah, we know that, but we decided that if we were to do the translation for free for you, you might be able to spend more money on vaccines, which is apparently what the topic was of this document. And they said, yeah, we would do that. And so there began Translators Without Borders. They've stated the mission. They want to increase access to knowledge through humanitarian translations. The idea being that knowledge is power. It saves lives, lifts people out of poverty, ensures better health and nutrition, creates and maintains economies. So it's really about the power of information. And I think if I'm to speculate, the feeling that gave rise to Translators Without Borders is this desire to use what we have as language professionals to contribute to humanitarian causes. For example, after the earthquake in Haiti, there were documents that dealt with how to manage a clinic where amputations are being performed, or how to deal with shock trauma. You know, very, very direct sort of material that you know when you translate is going to be of immediate humanitarian value. And sometimes the projects are projects that support the organizations that are carrying out the humanitarian work. So sometimes it might be even a form or something like this that you wouldn't know from the document itself. But we have a requirement at Translators Without Borders that the project that this is related to be described. The economic model for Translators Without Borders, as I said, it's cashless across the chain, almost always. There are a few exceptions. But when Lori and her partner said, we'll do it for free, well, they turned around and asked for volunteer translators. And in addition, for many years, Dotterer, Lori's company, would dedicate a project manager or part of a project manager's time to overseeing these projects. And all of that was unpaid. So the client didn't pay, the agency didn't pay, the volunteers were not paid. That's still the case. Recently, we, Pros.com, have become involved. We've been working together with Translators Without Borders for about a year and a half. Our involvement is the same. No money involved. So all of these activities are really subsidized by the commercial work that we're all doing. It's something we do on the side, above and beyond. So at the end of the day, really, whether or not Translators Without Borders accepts an organization and whether or not volunteers come forward to provide the translation depends entirely upon what they're doing. And basically, if it's judged worthy, people give their time. Only recently, after 18 years of doing this without any funding whatsoever, now that the volumes have expanded considerably in the last year and a half, Translators Without Borders has begun to accept donations to cover administrative costs. How do these projects get done? The approach that we've taken since Pros.com became involved, if you're familiar with Pros.com, Pros.com doesn't get involved in projects. Instead, we provide a venue where people who need translators or interpreters can meet translators and interpreters. So we call that an enabling type business. We provide tools and opportunities, and people use them as they will, doing business in the way that they see fit. We've applied a similar approach in working together with Translators Without Borders. And so now the philosophy basically is we're going to provide a venue where non-governmental organizations, nonprofits, can post their projects. Once those organizations have been screened. And translators who have been screened also can accept those projects as their schedules and interests allow. Just a little bit of background about how we wound up working together with Translators Without Borders. After the earthquake in Haiti, Translators Without Borders had many volunteers and didn't have the capacity to screen them all. So we set up a work center where volunteer reviewers, screeners could screen sample translations. And once we'd done that, now in effect we had a database of screened translators. Lori said, hey, why don't you just give us a way to send work to that group of people? So we did that, and little by little together we've wound up building a platform for self-service projects. And that's twb.translationcenter.org. You'd find that in a search for Translators Without Borders. There's full communication among the teams and with the clients. So it's not a situation where there's an agency in between. The client posts the job, the translators may accept it. If there's 5 translators, well, everybody has one discussion page where they can discuss the project, terminologies, etc. So it's nice in that sense, very open in communication. There are dedicated project managers. Currently, there's a person at pros.com, just because when the intern who had been doing it for Translators Without Borders left, we didn't immediately have a replacement, so someone at pros.com stepped in. So that person's available if they're needed. So let's say there's a job that's 20,000 words. It probably won't go to one person. It might be divided into 10 pieces or 15 pieces among many translators. So we would split the job, put it out to the translators, reassemble it, and when it comes back in, and deliver it to the client. The translators, currently there's 678 in the database. They've all been screened, as I said. The screening process would typically involve taking a test. The test would be a document that was previously used in the field, real type of work. Of course, there's been permission given to use. It's usually heavy-duty stuff. The translations are needed for real purposes, and there might be something about water purification or disease control or very serious topics. So the test itself is rigorous. The screening is rigorous. The way the approach works for now is that when the client and translator are matched, the work is done, and there's no quality control exerted by the organization. So there's really a reliance on screening good people. So that's why there's a bit of a hurdle up front. Experienced translators are what Translators Without Borders looks for, typically. We would like you to have several years of experience in the field. That said, a skilled translator may have an opportunity, if you've been experienced in a field, let's say, you have medical experience or something like this, there may be an opportunity. You have to pass the test. Lori and Andrew were talking. At this point, Translators Without Borders is really in quite a growth phase, and we've looked at different problems creatively. We certainly would look for a way, if there was an interest here, to sort of synthesize things so that perhaps students could get involved, maybe with that additional layer that we don't now have, and whether that layer of review could be supplied by other university staff, college staff, or someone else within the Translators Without Borders community. We certainly would look for ways to do that if there was an interest here. As I said, we're in a process of scaling up right now. The translations had mostly been French-English, as it happens. Many of the NGOs that are supported by Translators Without Borders are located in Paris. There's this little, 1 mile radius, 1 kilometer radius, 2 kilometer radius, what have you, with a lot of these international humanitarian organizations that has been supported. But now that circle is expanding quite a bit, and many new NGOs have applied or are in the process of being screened. An advisory board was assembled last year by Lori, some of the best people in the industry, myself excluded. So some very capable people have come together on this board, and it's really the type of board where, as ideas become available, the implementation is there's quite a block of people that can carry something out through the industry. She's done a great job with that. Most recently, Lori has turned her own attention to Africa, and we have a pilot project now with the university, Tufts. Tufts has a large database of medical information, and we have a pilot project to translate that medical information into a local language in the Congo. And Lori's vision here, if I may get this wrong, so I believe what she would like to do, if you look at Africa, there is not a highly developed translation industry. You may have people who are capable of translating. They might be bilingual, they may be good writers, they may have deep expertise in some subject matter, but there's not an industry where there are norms for specifying projects. There aren't necessarily channels, well-formed channels for translators and clients to meet each other. There are organizations working in Africa, doing humanitarian work in Africa, who have budgets and would like to get translations done, but don't know how to go about doing that because there isn't a local industry. So in order to meet the humanitarian need in Africa, it turns out it may be necessary to develop the infrastructure of an industry. So Lori's been talking to different people. This is one of the projects that's come out of that. And what we're going to do, in Africa, there may not be the same internet connectivity, or the people who can do the translations may not have computers at home. In this pilot project in the Congo, 2 initial translators will be going to a university office and translating this material. It will be reviewed, they will be paid, and in this way we hope to not only get the translations done and contribute to the humanitarian need there, but also to give rise to a structured translation industry in Africa. Of course, for those who are involved as volunteers, the main benefit, as I said, is just contributing to a cause. That's really all that can be promised, and I think that's the way we'd like it to stay. There may also be some benefit in terms of experience, networking. I don't know. People may be meeting new clients. These are clients that outsource paid projects as well. So I'm sure there are relationships because of the direct contact. Whether that leads to paid work or not, I don't know. There are also opportunities with Translators Without Borders for developers, project managers, as we expand and go forward. If anyone has any interest in discussing, has any interest in being involved in volunteering, my email address is henry@pros.com, PROZ.com. I'd be interested in discussing with you.